in a moment we're going to watch Miss Havisham, or Doreen Vernon, another one of her videos. The more I watch this, the more it kind of freaks me out, to be honest, because the more I watch it, the more I see Roman. Anyway, it wasn't how I was going to make this video, and it starts off with some messages, and then it goes on to a couple of other messages. So basically what it was is, the other day I videoed Sven when he's out in Norwich and he's looking at this church, and him and Trinity say the same thing. And I've said this to Mickey loads of times. It's like you blink and then, oh, we've got an old church. I just don't know. It's just bizarre how all this stuff is here. Trinity 4 is talking about it. I just empathised with him on that one. But I sent Sven the message, and he's just saying, because obviously he's just been out on the Globe Light tour. So he said, I just saw a couple of minutes, and what you've both said is bang on with what we're suggesting. It's the classic tactics of confusion, contradictions in history and books, and obvious discrepancies, almost on purpose, like they do with all other crap they have us endure. So now we're just going to move on to where I got to. Hopefully it gives you some more information, and leave your comments afterwards. Sven doesn't know he's in my video, but me and Mickey have done so much looking into this. It's just quite amazing. You can't turn up at a church now and see normal. You just see, oh, there's a bit add-on. Oh, you know, I just saw a church. Oh, look at that lovely building, and now I don't. Every church me and Mickey go to, they're add-ons. But anyway, let's carry on with the video.
Hi Karen, I thought I'd send you a quick voice message rather than type back and forth. Hope you're doing fine. Hope everything's okay. And it seems like ages ago since we last talked, although it's only been 2 weeks. There was a lot to see. I mean, so much old stuff everywhere you look, right? When I say old stuff, I mean the concealing of old stuff and making it look old, even though of course the cladding is newer and all that, right? Especially cities like Bath and stuff. It's just astounding. So it just goes to show everything that they've ruined and got rid of. Just shows you how much we must have had in the early days before they did all the damage, right? Anyway, fascinating stuff. Hopefully we'll talk soon. Take it easy, and regards to Mickey. Bye for now.
Yes, I don't know why I didn't see it before. Why didn't we see this before? You turn up at a church and you go, oh, look at that church. And now you turn up and you immediately see, no, that's an add-on, they're different times, that's not the same as that. Look at the graves, let's have a look at the age of the graves. And Mickey found this lady who's explaining some of the stuff in the church. I don't think she realises how Roman it is. But what she said was that all the clergymen worked for the government. And basically, I wonder if I can, let's see if I can record it for you, this bit. This bit's good because we can message on, you know, like the message can go on. I'll see if it'll work. See if there's this bit. She's in a church. She's not done anything for a year. Mickey passed her over to me. Let's just tape this bit, for you.
This is the 1% window, which is to commemorate the event that happened in 1665. It shows all the symbology. William Mompesson, the Puritan rector, who arrived in the village shortly before that, and the Reverend Thomas Stanley was actually thrown out of vicarage when they came together to decide to quarantine the village. That's the story. It's the so-called parcel of cloth. They're the lovers. The lovers that were star-crossed. Apparently, after she died, he never married. Believe that. Reverend Stanley and Amiss discussing what they're going to do in the situation. The Puritan or Calvinist clergy were actually government agents.
Yeah, now that's in her video, and she's just looking at a glass window, and that's what she's saying it reads, and she's looking at some of the stones, and she's also noted that some of them are black and some of them aren't. But then in this graveyard, some of the stones are in Latin, and she says a bit later on that what they do is the rich people pay for their seats. Oh, in here she explains that the rich people pay for their seats. They've all got to go. They might even go one day a week and once a day. That's 7 days a week, and the rich ones, whatever. And then she says that someone has a stick in there, and if they don't watch the ceremony, then they get whacked. So I thought, wow, because I actually felt that the churches had all the land originally, and the farmers were working on their land. So it was the same kind of thing as the... I hope you don't disagree with me. When I looked up what the slaves were in America, everybody was called in. It's most bizarre. Every slave was called. But they got given their land to the cotton, you know, all that kind of stuff. They got given their land and they farmed and everything. And in a way, they all had normal lives, except they wouldn't be able to go to the balls and things like that. They still had families. They weren't prisoners in shackles like they've said they were, but they were still slaves in a way because they couldn't have the farms themselves. They had to work for the plantations, that's it. And it's the same sort of thing here, but we call them churches. So everybody was working for the church. And I felt that, and I was thinking, I bet you that people didn't even want to go to church. But she said that the churches were government agents. So... most churches to me are small wooden brick buildings, and then they've built on and built on and built on, and they might even have a steeple on them. But they're all brick buildings, just like the one that's here in Thatcham. It's along the A4. It's just a little chapel. It's just that little building, but if it had been somewhere else, it would have been built on and built on and built on. Oh, look, it's a Norman church, if you get what I mean. Anyway, I hope that comes across okay. She's quite nice. She's called Miss Havisham, but she's now called Dora Vernon. She's not done a video for a year, but she's explaining a lot that's happening in the graveyards. And the churches, what things mean in there. She actually said one of the statues was Isis. Also, just to say that I don't think she realises, or maybe she does, how Roman everything is in this church when she's going round it, because some of the gravestones are in Latin. So why would they be like that, and why would they be learning Latin? She said they learnt Latin. So why would they be learning Latin? And also, when you go round these churches, Mickey's one had it, most of them seem to have an eagle as the bit where they put the Bible to do the ceremony. And we know what the eagle is. The eagle is the Roman Empire, or the Holy Roman Empire. So they've actually got the Bible on it. So that's where the Bible comes from. It comes from them. Maybe she does realise how Roman everything is. But it all seems Roman now. Anyway, I might even put this in my video, because I'm making this video right now. I'm going to show her video with her saying it. Anyway, thanks, Sven.
Hello, it's Miss Havisham. I'm back at Eam, the so-called plague village. This one, if you notice, it's aged the 22 years, and that's the fish. 22 is the symbol of the fish. So I found the church is open, so I'm going in. Hello. Shut the door. I'll just close the door. What's this? Now this statue is Isis and Horus. So it symbolises Isis and Horus. It seems to look different from last time. The display's gone. The plague display has gone. It was in that corner, it's all gone. This is the old font. I think there's someone here, I think it's a vicar. It's giving a list of benefactions to the parish. The wealthy people that used to leave some money for the poor. I can't read, this is too dark. This is it. It seemed different from this time. It seemed different. I can't see anything. That. This is the 1% window, which is to commemorate the event that happened in 1665. It shows all the symbology. William Mompesson, the Puritan rector, who arrived in the village shortly before that, and the Reverend Thomas Stanley was actually thrown out of the vicarage when they went together to decide to quarantine the village. That's the story. It's this so-called parcel of cloth. They're the lovers. The lovers that were star-crossed. Apparently after she died he never married. I believe that. It's Reverend Stanley and Mompesson discussing what they're going to do in the situation. The Puritan or Calvinist clergy were actually government agents. That's the book scraper. in the doorway.
It is 1203, so that's what's going on.
Blessed are these babes who soon resigned their breath and felt betimes the ray hand of death. I noticed how black this stone is. It's all black. Must have been very wealthy because it's all surrounded by the railings. It's all, the stone's black. The walled off area. This is walled off. In this area here. And then the two box or altar tombs. But of course there is no one buried in there. There isn't. So this is a veteran of Waterloo. Adam Holmes, and he was born April the 1st, 1783 and died October 20th, 1878. He was engaged in His Majesty's 52nd Foot under Wellington and fought at the battles of Vittoria, Pyrenees, Oaths, Nivelle, Nive, Toulouse, and lost his left leg at Waterloo. I haven't seen this one. Oh my god, how spooky that looks. You can see it. Look how weird that looks. That one at the back looks like Father Christmas. It probably is as well. It probably is Father Christmas. Look at this. You can see it better from this side with the lighting. Look at that. That looks weird as well. This strangeness of this area here. These stones have obviously just been put there at the side of the path, and to make this quadrangle area, look at that one, that's some kind of an old tombstone, very old, but these are around the wall in the corner. And those, and that's so identical to those in Ashbourne Church. Those that's propped up there against the wall, identical ones I saw in Ashbourne Church. Inside that has got a cross at the centre and the two wheels on either side. They're symbolising a power vortex. And that one. That is even symbolic, as I've done the slideshow before, of a Christmas parcel. When the Christmas parcel is wrapped up with a ribbon around it, and it's often in videos, it's shown like that, symbolic. Sometimes you can get the stained glass window from the other side, depending on the light, and that, it even looks like a hologram. The face, I just noticed that face. It looks like a hologram. It's the face in the middle. Look at that. It's almost like a photograph. Very strange. Very strange how these are done. Faces. they look like a kind of a photograph or negative of a photograph. Because they've changed the calendar, we don't know when the 8th century was, because we can take away 1,300 years. Go around the side. Depending on the lighting. This is the other side of the one I did last time. The hourglass, denoting the passage of time, the shortness of life, and the winged disc, basically. They made it into a face, but it's a winged disc. And just to give a good look at this one, a good overview of it. This altar tomb, tulips, or lilies symbolising immortality, and the tulip was the symbol of the Puritans or Calvinists, and the Calvinists, when they took over, the Calvinist clergy, they moved into the churches that were fitted out with pews and pipe organs, and this was to get the masses to go to worship every Sunday, and then they would be indoctrinated to work, and basically there would be someone there with a stick that if they fell asleep due to exhaustion, they would be prodded awake, and they had to pay the church rates. Everyone had to pay the church rates, but the Calvinist preachers were working for the government. They were government agents, and this was how they kept the masses in control, because they had to go to preach in the churches every Sunday, and in fact some people would go to church every day of the week and twice on Sunday. That was the wealthy ones, but the wealthy people had their own pews in the best seats, which they would pay for. They paid for the seats, and the paupers would have the poor seats at the side or at the back or on the balconies. When they built the mezzanine areas above were for paupers to sit in there, because the paupers couldn't sit with the wealthy people, but the wealthy people did pay for their seats. So I found another one here with an eye on it. This one you wouldn't notice it. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Wow. This one is in Latin. The light's starting to fade now. And of course these people all learnt ancient Greek and Latin. And his wife died aged 66. 1782. They all learned Latin and Greek, ancient Greek. The wealthy people, but not the poor ones. They were literate. They only needed to know enough to carry out the functions of working in the fields or in the factories. Catherine Mompesson's tomb is also in Latin. It's also in Latin. Look at that. Also in Latin. I was trying to find this one from before. That is so weird. So weird. Farewell, husband, and don't let the thoughts of me your mind regret, but always bear a tender heart, and never from my children part. We loved our mother here, we love her memory still, while any of her children lives. We hope they always will. I was trying to find this one from before. That is so weird.
Hi Karen, thanks for those clips that you sent the messages. Yeah, there's a few things in there that need unjumbling, right? So first of all, when we talk about Romans, what do we mean by that? Right, so the history book version is that we had a Roman Empire that all stems from Rome, what we now call the capital of Italy, right? Italy, just like Germany, just like France, just like all the world really, they were all sort of little states, city-states, principalities, regions. They weren't countries back in the day, right? They were owned by families. Regions were run by families, just like principalities like Monaco today and San Marino, or Liechtenstein, whatever you want to call them. They're little remnants of what used to be Europe. And then what they did was they joined all these regions together to have them easier to basically govern, and then have more control over larger swathes of people, to simplify the control system that we have today, right? So when we're talking about Romans, what do we mean by that? Do we mean soldiers who are actually only trained to ride a horse and throw a spear? What, they came over to England and built loads of castles and aqueducts and viaducts and roads and bridges and tunnels and all that, and built the boats to get them over the English Channel, and managed to eat and live and conquer nations and all the rest of it thousands of years ago? I don't believe that for 1 second, right? So that for me is dead in the water in terms of even a slight possibility. Having been to Bath, I know it's total nonsense, right? So so the whole Roman thing for me, I think, is again a distraction. Just like the Roman thing that gets tied in with the Bible, the Christians were thrown in the Colosseum to the lions and all that. I think it's all bollocks. I think it's all bullshit. Right, so, and I think that we literally can only go back to 250 or so years, and that's it. The one thing I will agree with, though, is the first educational hubs were church-based. So before kids went to secondary schools and comprehensive schools and stuff, they started going to the little parish churches, and that is back in the 1860s and stuff, to learn to read and write. Before then, nobody read and wrote and read, unless you were part of the elite or you were part of the Latin setup, which is the clergy, the Catholic clergy only. The Church of England don't talk Latin. The Catholic Church do, right? So it's only the Catholic Church, which is an absolute small percentage of the total population of Earth that believe in any sorts of gods. We have the smallest percentage, the Catholic Church. I say we, because I'm actually Catholic, for example. I don't practice it, obviously, right? So you think about 100% world population, the percentage of them that are Christian are about 5, the percentage of them that are about Catholic, even less. So that's how small a world population the Catholics are. So in terms of world population and influence and all the rest of it, we are minute. Nothing. Nothing. And everybody seems to forget about all the other religions and all the other gods that are knocking about and all the other scriptures, alleged scriptures that are knocking about in the world. And the Roman thing and the Catholic thing and the church thing is just one of those versions. That's how I see it. That's my personal view of it. But were the churches and the clergies part of a governmental setup? Yeah, probably were, if we call it government. Whoever ran it, whoever runs what we live in. People tend to call it government. Government is the wrong word to use, really. But yeah, people, the powers that shouldn't be, let's call it like that. So yeah, I would agree with that as well, that they had to have some sort of start to all of this to begin the whole process of rolling out a population that's already been indoctrinated. You needed to start somewhere, and that was by teaching your kids how to read and write, but teaching them what you wanted them to read and write, right? That's the key bit. So yeah, I think that's correct as well. The symbology in churches and all the stuff, that can all be added after the fact. Right, we know, you know, that people have added artwork and sculptures and stuff to churches. It's easily done. We have sculptors that can do it today. You know, we have stonemasons that can do a good job out of a block of concrete or whatever, and all that. The questions we have are, for the day that these things were built, how on earth did people even manage to build them? Because they wouldn't have had the tools to do so for a start. All right, if we're to believe our history books. So again, we have the mishmash of what is perceivably true, what is perceivably possible, and what of course is absolute nonsense. It's all mixed up with each other, so it's very difficult to figure out what is true, what is there to deceive us and distract us, what should we ignore, what should we follow up on. And that's the bit where I'm at, and that's the bit where we're all at. Trinity and all the rest of us who are doing this, that's where we're looking at right now, because that's the key bit. So we've got a lot of that mist and fog to kind of get out of the way, you know. So, but yeah, any points are good points, because they're all worth discussing, because we're all trying to find out the truth at the end of the day, or at least discard the big swathes of lies, aren't we? We're all in it for the right reasons on that one. So we have to keep our options open. But certainly some of the glaring, obvious no-nos, well, we have to then treat them as such. No-nos. Boom, get rid of them. Nonsense. People wearing bronze skirts and sandals did not ride over the Alps, conquer the whole of Europe, and then build all sorts of magnificent buildings. That is absolute nonsense, right? And that is something that we've definitely established now. But that's bollocks. Never mind the Greek nonsense. That's even worse, right? But anyway, yeah, but I think it's good. I think we need to be looking and analysing it from all angles, most certainly. Anywho, there's me waffled on there. Speak soon. And the other thing you were talking about that I wanted to talk about briefly are the churches, the chapels, the cathedrals, the priories, the minsters, and whatnot, whatever words we give all these constructions that we've repurposed into religious places of worship. Yes, most of them are most definitely clad with brickwork behind them going deep into the ground. That is the conclusion that we've managed to draw up from the ones that we've looked at. When you go up close to these buildings and you start scratching away at where the cladding meets the ground, you'll find that often the cladding is kind of goes into the ground, because what they've done is they've tarmacked the drive up to the church, or the car park outside the church. They've tarmacked it up to the wall, and so that gives it that effect. Like I said in my video, because I did a bit of tarmacking for a while, so that's why I know, right? Tarmacking, you got your tarmac, which is a few inches thick, and then below that you got your layering of stones, and below that you got dirt. So you're talking a good 7, 8, 10 inches thickness that you can take off the surface of the ground that you stood on. And that's before you get to the original ground, if you like. And then you don't know if that original ground below the tarmac has come up, right? So depending on that, you can see how deep the church goes into the ground. Not the cladding, the church. The bit that you can see, the cladding that might go down some steps, they've added that cladding on once they've pulled that retaining wall back. So what they've done is they've gone down the side of a building They've dragged the earth back. You need the technology for that, right? So that wouldn't have happened pre-Victorian days. Would not have happened because you wouldn't have had the machinery to do it. But anyway, so you're talking pre-1800s? No, never would have happened. They would not have been able to do that. Anyway, so they pull the earth back. They keep the earth back so that, because you need to put people in that gap between that space that you've made and the wall of the building that you're trying to clad, right? Then you put the cladding on, and that's why you then see often, say Bath for example, those magnificent buildings where you've got the gang planks that go from the road to the front door, and below the planks, the concrete planks, is another level, a layer of flats or basement houses and rooms and stuff like that. They're the ones that always have problems, of course, because their rooms and basement apartments weren't supposed to be underground in the first place. But getting back to the churches, so yeah, most of them will be red bricked, and that's why bricks are such a key in all of this. That's why the date of 1885 is so key, and that's why it's also important to stress the fact that we're not saying bricks didn't exist. It's just that the amount of bricks required, like I said yesterday in the video, I'm up to 17 churches now in a radius of 3/4 of a mile. 17 churches in Boscombe. 17. That's crazy. That's crazy. What for? They clearly weren't houses of worship. Clearly not. Even in today's day with the so-called overpopulation, which is yet more bullshit, that would be far too many churches. You wouldn't require that for your populations. And you know, back then you didn't have the population to support such construction activity, let's say, right? So, you know, it's layers upon layers of lies, and it's getting back to the beginnings of it all. A bit like what's going on now. You know, the agenda has rolled on now in the last 2.5 years that people forget how all this started in the first place. And if you can bring them back to that point, which is what I was trying to do on the tour, then suddenly you can get a bit of joy with them. And you know, appeal to their, not only their consciousness, but also appeal to their logic and their common sense. It's the same with these buildings. If you sort of imagine away the cladding and all the rest of it, the spires, I mean, how do you get the spires on the top? You know, Salisbury Cathedral, huge spire, how do you get that on there? Pulleys, rope pulleys and wooden framed cranes, really? What, with round wooden wheels that go creak, creak, creak up a dirt track? Takes about 100 slaves to pull it up a little hill 50 yards. Slaves? What slaves? You know, we didn't have populations. We just didn't. If you look at all the census from all the little towns and stuff like that, you know, you go back to the 1870s, anything that has a population now of a few thousand would have had a few hundred at best back then. You know, so there are all these anomalies that don't fit together. So what they've done is they've inherited the buildings. They've noticed they need cladding because they can't explain on why anyway. So you do that, or you do all that work in the time that you're just beginning to indoctrinate a civilization ready to roll them out. That's how I'm seeing it. So, you know, let's use, for example, the World's Fairs as an example in North America, or even here in England, you know, because they started here, 1851, right? You know, that is one way of putting good use to already existing buildings. They would have had to clad some of them, of course, or whitewash them, you know, hence that phrase, go give them a lack of paint and stuff like that. Make them look new, make them look they were built specifically for that event. And then, of course, when the event is over, tear most of them down and leave a few of them standing, and then tell the rest of the world that the ones that they tore down were just temporary buildings anyway. Again, yet more nonsense. But who's going to refute that claim? Back then, nobody would have argued the point because people were too busy trying to get by. Funny enough, just like they are today. How ironic. So again, you have the same situation whereby people are so distracted and busy trying to make ends meet and survive on a daily basis, they do not have the time to check out what's going on and give it a bit of thought. No different to what happened 200 years ago or so when all this started getting rolled out. So yeah, there are many questions that are unanswered. And then you add into the mix the already visible brick buildings that they've clad with brick-looking cladding as well. Right? Liverpool Cathedral being one of them, for example. Now, that's a bit of a conflict, that one, because Trinity's been there. Uran says that is built in the 1900s. Trinity's saying he reckons it's a combo. I think he's probably right. because you can fake books that show photos of stonemasons making stuff for a building just as well as you can fake imagery, right? So yeah, there's lots and lots of open questions. But yeah, cladding is a key one. Cladding is a key one for many, many reasons.
I've just listened to one of your messages. I don't know if I can listen to the second one because I'm going into work now, but I will a bit later on. But in my findings, Hitler, First Reich, Second Reich, Third Reich, is exactly the same as this stupid Holy Roman Empire with its 3 Reichs. So that's where I get that bit from. And also the eagle is on the bit where they put the Bible. Most churches seem to have eagles where they put the Bible. So eagles are to do with the Roman Empire. We're still in it. We're still in the Roman Empire, whatever it is, Egyptian or Roman Empire. We're still in it. So that still goes on. But how much of it is a lie anyway, the whole thing, I don't know, because you've only got bits to go through and it's so hard to work the ages out, isn't it? I mean, what are you really looking at? Are you looking at something really old, or has it been fabricated to look old? Why would they do this? Turn buildings into churches like that. Why spend all that money? Do you know what? The first thing that came to my mind was Robin Hood, to be honest. That's maybe the story for where Robin Hood comes from then. You have to go to church and you have to pay your taxes. Yeah. Anyway, nothing much has probably changed, has it? You think it's something new, but it isn't. But I'll listen to your next message later, Sven. Yes, it's quite incredible that they could build so many bits underneath the church, even, say, 100 years ago. But it's not even that they built them, it's that they built them so well. Like, all of them are just always finished off nicely. It's not like you get, oh look, there's a hole under the church, you know. Got doors and doorways, always finished off nicely. And I just think that they're brick buildings and they've built on and built on and built on. I never saw them like that before. And sometimes it is like that in the church, because they'll say, well, the church used to come to here and then they've changed the arches and things on it. It just seems to me that Robin Hood, they were the baddies, you know, the whatever it is of Nottingham. And they were getting their taxes. But how long ago everything goes. You know, when they're, to me, the 1800s is when all the slaves and immigrants turn up. It's like they're inhabiting this place, and whatever was here was here. It's like maybe this place was empty for a while, or I just don't know. It's like America was being inhabited, or with them, I suppose, with this history. But you know, like they said that they got independence from England, where they got a corporation to England. So everything's the other way round. And oh God, you said so much in that message. Oh yeah, how the buildings go down. Yeah. It's all a bit crazy, isn't it? And then to spend all this money to fool us and fool us again. And then nearly every graveyard you go to, it's got fake gravestones in them for some reason. You know, it's as if every church was a healing place with water. But they've destroyed that bit, and then, oh, let's sting a wing on. But the money and the effort to do this, I mean, like you said, how many churches you've got in your area. Well, think how many churches there are then. Or now that there are. But we stopped going to church, so it's all a bit bizarre, isn't it? So the churches work for the government. It makes sense to me. Work for that Roman Egyptian thing. Very interesting, Sven. Thank you very much. Yeah. I know Mickey would like your messages.
Yeah, and you made a very good point about how well they're built as well. They're not just built to last, but they're also built with real great accuracy and pinpoint precision, which again would indicate technical proficiency, right? Handcraft only takes you so far, and then eventually you have to, if it's going from hundreds into thousands, you have to have the technology to be able to produce that, you know, and get it done so well. But that is one thing. Another thing is, of course, that when you're cladding buildings, you need the original plans of the buildings you're going to clad. Otherwise, you ain't going to get your dimensions correct for the stuff that you're putting over the top of it. Which means they're lying, these parishes, when they say they don't have the original plans to these buildings. Or they've been told that they haven't got them, but actually they are somewhere. Because they have to be. If you're cladding any buildings, if I need to clad a building, I need to know what I'm cladding, right? I can't just go there and measure it with a measuring tape. That's not going to work. You have to know what materials they're made of so that you know it's not going to react badly against the material that you're cladding it with, right? You're going to have to know what part of the buildings are more exposed to what winds and what weather, excuse me, so that you know what kind of, material, again, you want to use for that cladding, for those cladding purposes, and all the rest of it. You know, you also need to know how much you're going to do to clad. So you also then need to know the depth to which you're going to clad the building. In other words, how low you're going to go down to the ground, and then maybe even beyond if you're pulling back a retaining wall and you want to clad the inside of that retaining wall to make it look like it was always like that and they built it like that on purpose, which of course they didn't. So there's all that to think about as well. So when they talk about no plans for original buildings, they're lying, totally and utterly lying. Right? They have to have them somewhere. They must have, because you cannot make cladding for a building if you don't know the dimensions of what you're cladding. No way on earth that would ever happen. Anyway, that's just another thought that I was thinking about last week, actually, quite intensely. And I was thinking, no, that just wouldn't work. You know, just would not work. If I need a carpet for my living room, I need to know the size of my living room before I buy the carpet. And I'll still have some excess carpet, perhaps, but I won't have too much excess carpet. You know what I'm trying to say? So you'll need whatever carpet you need to know what you need to stick the carpet to the floor, and how to maybe attach it to the wall. Do you want it going right up to the wall? Do you want it stopping just before the wall and all that? You need to be able to have the measurements first to be able to carry out any of that work, and not just look at the room and go, okay, that'll do. But with a building, it would be far more complex, wouldn't it? You'd have height, you'd have real dimensions, you'd have the different surfaces that you'd have. You're cladding, you're putting your cladding on top of brickwork, so you've got uneven surfaces that you're cladding as well. You're probably going to have to repair some of that brickwork as well. There's so much work and effort. And like you were saying about the money, well, if that was all happening in a time before us as a civilization were being rolled out, then money wouldn't have even been a point of contention. It would have just been done. So, yeah. Excuse me, frog in my throat. Anyway, yeah, interesting though. Interesting.
Sorry, I didn't mean to send the thumbs up, but if we were at war all the time, how would we be able to afford these things? How would we be able to afford all the churches? Just sounds like Robin Hood, doesn't it? They were robbing the poor and keeping the rich, and it sounds so like America with the slaves and the immigrants. Wow. Anyway, yeah, we'll have to have a chat again soon, Sven.
Well, Karen, absolutely, yeah, we do have to have a chat soon. That's for sure, of course. Would love to. Then they might realise that all wars, I'm not saying that there aren't ever any hotspots or that people don't ever die. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is wars, as we're told, don't happen. It's not what goes on. But they're for the purpose of the history books, they're for the purpose of the media to blur out through the radios back in the day that was controlled by the BBC World Services, don't forget. And today, who controls the radio waves and the media? Well, it's still BBC, CNN, Fox News, the same old, just with different packaging. Exactly the same thing, right? So wars are nonsense. They're bullshit. They're cover stories. They're cover stories for a lot of this shit that's going on right now, and also to move masses of people around, to nick kids off families, and all that sort of stuff. Remember the Operation Pied Piper that happened here in England? What a name to give an operation, whereby they sent the kids to the countryside to avoid German bombing. Now, we since know that German bombing hardly took place, because there were demonstrations on the streets that we know of people complaining that they were being blacked out at night and locked down at night, yet not being bombed by Germans, right? So, when we take all that into consideration, it gives it all a totally different spice, doesn't it? And we start seeing things for what they really are. And that's it. And that's the excitement that I find when I start discovering that stuff, because I'm really good with my sort of historical stuff, the official stuff, right? Though I'm shit with kings and queens, but then the other official stuff, right? I can now pull that apart and get a better understanding as to what these wars, for example, World War I and II, let's use those two as an example, they served a purpose far greater than the Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, Eisenhower bullshit. That is all cover story nonsense to occupy people's dinner tables when they're there eating their rationed food, right? It's all bullshit, bollocks, all of it. Anyway, yes, we must talk soon. I was going to say something else, but I've forgotten. If it comes to me in a minute, I will send you another message. All right, speak then. Bye. Oh yeah, and the other thing I was going to say was, when you talk about Robin Hood or anything like that, each country has methods to control their people that work in each individual country. So, for example, royalty works over here. It gets people's attention. Hollywood stars work in America. That gets people's attention. In Germany, it's something else. In France, it's something else. In Italy, it's something else. And so it goes on. So they tweak it and bring it in line and in accordance with the people who they've kind of raised and groomed in each particular farm, otherwise known as countries. You know, the higher you go up the echelons, the more countries aren't seen as countries at all. They're just seen as plots of land that are occupied by us. Farmlands occupied by cattle. That's it. Colours and all that sort of stuff, and flags, yeah, they're divided and they have meanings to a certain extent, but the higher up you go, money means nothing, right? That's how far up we're talking here. Well above the Rothschilds. Because don't forget, they're handled too. You know, everyone has a boss. Everyone has a boss. Anyway, speak soon and don't work too hard. Right, ta-ta for now.